Hi, everyone. My name is Joanna Daniel, and welcome to the Stories That Shape Us podcast. I am today talking to someone else on this podcast. We've been having guests recently in the last couple of episodes of the Stories That Shape Us. And today I have somebody who is a friend and a fellow therapist on our podcast today, and her name is Natasha Walker-Smith. And we're going to talk about a really important subject. Natasha is also a contributor to an anthology that we're doing, and I'll tell you some more about that when I let her in the room. But for now, help me welcome Natasha to the Stories That Shape Us podcast. Okay, welcome, Natasha, to the podcast. So everybody, this is Natasha Walker-Smith, and she's a therapist, as I said earlier. Natasha is one of the contributing authors to another book that we're doing called I Have God, I Don't Need a Therapist, and you'll hear some more about that in April. But for now, Natasha and I are going to talk about an important subject. I'm just going to tell you some more, as well as a therapist and a contributing author. Natasha works in addictions and mental health. And I was just saying to her how much that is close to my heart, because that's where I started. So welcome to the podcast, Natasha.
Thank you, Jo. Nice to be here.
Yes. So Natasha and I are going to talk about, we're both counselors. We go to the same church. Natasha and I are going to talk about DIYing your healing and some of the dangers in doing that. And when I say DIYing, I mean doing it yourself. When I was reflecting on that this morning, Natasha, there's so many people who will not attend the retreat, they will not attend the conference, they will not do anything other than they want to only pray, and that is what they're using as a healing strategy. I don't know if you've ever encountered anybody like that, and what are some of the things that we can talk about here that might help them to make some different decisions. Have you ever encountered anybody like that who that's the only method they want to use?
Yes, most definitely. And yeah, I have. I'll just answer that for now. Yes.
What were you were gonna say? And what
I was gonna say it's understandable that some, especially, if you're a Christian, you're in the church, you have this idea of, why do I need to go out there to a counselor? We have Ellen White, the Spirit of Prophecy, that gives us so much counsel.
And for those who are Adventists, because
to those that are Adventists, of course, but to those that are, you have the Bible, and obviously there's many scriptures of healing and much comfort to be found in the Bible, so you can completely understand it. I think what happens is, unless you have experienced that deeper healing that can happen when you are able to learn some techniques to deal with trauma and things like that, then you don't realize the benefits of it. So.
And I like that you said, when we need to learn unless we learn some techniques to deal with trauma in a deeper way, then we won't know the benefits. There's so many people that miss out on that benefit. And I think that's what I want to help them with today, because people are afraid, aren't they, of sometimes therapeutic support.
Most definitely. Yeah. I encountered that recently at a camp meeting. Say 2021 was the first time I encountered it. I didn't realize actually there was so much stigma against counselors, and again, it's just the lack of knowledge. I think people hear therapists and they feel like God wasn't enough. You thought God wasn't enough, so you went out there, and I think we need to change that narrative. Because I know years ago when we used Freud, for instance, Freud's way of counseling, laying on the couch, talking about your dreams and your past, and this way of counseling is not what we do these days. We walk alongside people, it's humanistic, it's person-centered, and it's about walking alongside people. And that was based on, started by someone called Carl Rogers, who himself was raised as a Christian. That's what drew me to it in the first place. When I was learning, at university, I thought, these are deep Christian principles, I think it's lack of knowledge as well. And I think the awareness that we're putting out there is valuable and needed.
Yeah, so needed. I think lots of people's fears make them teach, because I hear a lot of teaching around not accessing therapy. Like people with depression will told that if you just think better, if you have Bible studies, then you're going to be okay. And so there are lots of people who feel less than if they need it. And
That's
so
right.
they feel they shouldn't need it, because then something is wrong with me if I need it, but the next person don't. And I wonder if they measure their spirituality by that, Natasha.
I think so. Really, quite scary and quite dangerous that, so depression would be looked at like that. Again, lack of awareness, lack of knowledge, of what depression can actually be. Depression isn't, I feel down today. I can't be bothered to cook today. That is not depression.
No.
I remember hearing somebody talk about depression a few years ago when I lived in London. She said, this helped me to understand what depression was. She said to me, Natasha, she said, I couldn't lift the comb to comb my hair. And that just, my whole body just went in tingles. I thought, wow, that's clinical depression, and so it's, again, just looking at educating ourselves, and to say to somebody, just pray, let's have a Bible study. Bible study. Somebody can't lift a comb to their hair, their thoughts are completely tangled, they don't even know who they are. Sometimes to sit and comprehend a Bible study, and the counseling, especially what we're using as Christians, it's all based on the Bible. Jesus did it. Jesus sat with
and
people
listened.
And he listened. And something that came to me just before we started here now, Job's friends.
They
traveled from afar, and they sat with him for 7 days. Nobody said a word. And before I was a counsellor, I didn't really understand that. I always used to think, what is this story about? What are we supposed to understand from this story? But it just came to me just now, and I thought, wow, and the beauty of just being present. And this is what I mean about, yes, I can understand why someone would say, my Bible is, my Bible is my counselor, I just go to Jesus, I don't need to speak to anyone. I can understand it. But once you start learning these other skills and understanding that there's some practical things that you can do along with your prayer, along with your Bible study, because it all works hand in hand. It all works hand in hand.
It does.
Then you have a deeper understanding.
And it doesn't minimize God in your life or the place of the Bible. What I see it do is strengthen it, because what I see, Natasha, is that sometimes people are going to church, but they're not really even trusting God or committed, because the pain means that they can't, because why haven't you taken away the pain? There are people that says, I thought when I got baptized, Joanna, that I wouldn't need to heal from the trauma. You still do. But I thought God would just take it away from me. And I think there are people sometimes that are waiting for that to happen without them doing anything. And it takes long, because it's not going to happen without you doing anything. And then they become disillusioned.
Yeah, most definitely. And there we go again about the practical things, the tools and the techniques, looking deeper into these things. Again, it was 15 years. I've been in the church, baptized for 15 years. 11 years, before I even did my degree and started to learn these tools. I didn't realize there was still so much deep pain. I didn't know, but my family knew, people around me knew, because I carried that into my relationships. I carried that into my workplace, the way I responded to people, the way I behaved, and it was, even still carrying some resentments.
Yes.
You hear this word about forgiveness all the time. That's really as far as it went for me, whilst when I just used the Bible. I need to forgive. I need to forgive. Right. Okay. Pray about this, pray about this, pray about this. Forgive. Then tomorrow I'm feeling it again. So I'm like, okay, forgiveness isn't once and for all. You need to do that on a daily basis, and I was understanding that, and I was really getting to the core of that. But the resentments and things like this, when I saw the lessons and the tools that you can use, nothing about it is unchristian. Nothing.
No.
It is all hand in hand.
It does.
It was beautiful, even to be able to write things like to write a reflective accounts on your life. How you're feeling. How have you spoken to these people? And just going deeper and deeper and deeper into these things and it will help people to heal immensely.
Life-changing stuff.
Life-changing
stuff.
Yeah.
I can't imagine not healing. The Joanna that I am now, I am just so happy that she did what she did, because I'm a better mom, I'm a better person, I'm a better woman and counselor and everything as a result of it. And you talked about how it impacts our relationships. We take it with us, and we don't know that we're doing it. We don't know that we have these ways of relating that are unhealthy or that are harmful. We just know that we are just being us, and we don't know that there's another way. You mean this is as a result of that, and I can change, and that's something we won't discover on our own.
No, most definitely not. And and it's not to say that in a church setting, in church, when we go to church, that we can't receive this healing, but we need to bring something else in, I think.
Yes.
I think the same as how we sat in a circle while we were studying with our classmates, or if you go to a Narcotic Anonymous meeting, or these CA meetings or Alcohol Anonymous meetings, they sit in a circle and they all relate to one another. The barriers come down and people are vulnerable with one another, and they relate.
That's it, isn't it? The barriers come down and vulnerability comes in. And I believe that oftentimes at church, no barriers come in. Everybody's barriers way high. There's nobody doing vulnerability. Even the person who say the word isn't actually doing it. And so what could be achieved, because I believe in groups and community, don't get achieved because everybody's protective.
Yeah, most definitely. And going back again, as I said, those first 11 years of me being baptized, I genuinely felt the Lord had put a peace on me. I wasn't carrying so much pain as I was. Most definitely. I know that for sure. So again, as I keep saying, I can understand why someone would think, why do you need to go anywhere else? But all I'm trying to say is just maybe give it a try. If you've been through some type of trauma, if you're carrying some type of pain, if there are things that happened around you as a child or whatever, there are ways, and there's some techniques, and so there's some tools that you can use, some practical ones. And, as I keep saying, they are all biblical. They're all biblical.
They are. But here's the thing. There's certain things that we do at Wounds to Scars childhood traumas, And there's certain things that happened to us when we were children. And that's where we develop these coping strategies that we take with us into our marriage and our parenting. That's where sometimes we develop the codependency, the people pleasing. That's where shame really tells us stories that impact the rest of our lives. And sometimes if we don't have somebody to reflect this back to us, we don't know that, hang on, you mean shame made me you mean I'm making all of these decisions as a result of shame? I tell my shame story all the time. I mean, I have many. As if you live longer than 2 days, you've got some shame stories, right? So one of the shame story I tell Natasha is in Jamaica, taking common entrance exams, and I failed when I was 11, but everybody else thought I was going to pass. And my father and I took the taxi, and we went to the town and stand in the corner and wait for the newspaper, and nobody's talking. It's all hushed. And He got the paper, opened it, and my maiden name is Johnson. And he looked down the list of J, and my name wasn't there. He shut the paper, and we went home. Silence. In that silence, Brene Brown says, in the absence of data, we tell ourselves stories, right? That silence told me so many things about myself that I couldn't understand when I was 11.
Yeah.
But it impacted the rest of my life. So I went home. My mother said not a word, but I went to school, and my friends, they said a lot. And now they didn't want to be friends with me anymore because I wasn't good enough, because I didn't pass and they did. And now the teachers are silent. All the adults, nobody said anything to me. So the confusion for me and the self-esteem that just eroded through that experience. So fast forward many, many years, I'm in CBT training, and I was practice teaching for a university, right? And I'm writing my report, and this woman, she sent back my report, because she would send it back if you didn't cross a T, right? And I'm frustrated in CBT class, and I'm doing role play, and I'm really critiquing myself hard. And the woman I was working with and the lecturer stopped, and they both looked at me and they said, "What did your mother do?" And I'm like, "What?" They said, "You're so hard on yourself, Joanna. You're doing this so well, but you're critiquing yourself so hard. What did your mother do?" And I thought, I was upset the whole afternoon. And I always say to people, when you're upset, it's a good thing. It's touching on something. As I reflected back, because I had the skills now to reflect and to think about it. And so as I'm thinking through it, Natasha, I realized, oh my Lord, that's where it came from. I've never thought I was good enough because I failed my exams. I was doing so many things at that point, all in an attempt to prove to my parents that I could do something. So I went home and I called my mom and I said, "What do I do for a living?" She says, "I don't know, but whatever you do it well." And I thought, I don't even know what I do. So I stopped everything that year. That was about 10 years ago. I stopped everything and peeled it all back so I could find me, what I wanted, and I could move on from there. But now, if you don't have the skills to do that, you don't know why you're doing 500 things.
Exactly. And you started to learn to become comfortable with that. And that's a major thing, isn't it? Learning to become comfortable with your feelings and sitting in those feelings and processing them instead of running
away from them or hiding it with things.
Exactly. And how do we do that? We do that in so many ways, keeping busy, taking on way too much than we can do, and all types of things, and some very unhealthy ones as well, by substance abuse and all manner of things to escape. So
and I often talk about the nice ones that we use at church, like overwork.
That's right.
And we're studying again, and we're working hard, and we're not stopping, and we're doing all the things, and it's all in an effort. So if I stop, then I'll have to think, and I don't want to think.
That's
I don't want to feel, so I'm going to avoid it.
Joe, I'm going to have to give me 1 second. Someone's knocking the door.
Okay, right.
Give me 1 second.
So while Natasha goes and answer the door, I want to talk about some of the tools that she mentioned earlier, that if we have these tools, then it helps us to be able to ask ourselves questions. And when we say sit with the discomfort, the uncomfortable feelings, like I had to sit with the uncomfortable feelings when my colleague and lecturer said, "What did your mother do?" Now that got me upset, because loyalty meant that I didn't want to acknowledge that she did anything or I had anything to process, right? So those are the things that we do at our conference and our retreats at Wounds to Scars. And our conference is coming up April 8 and 9. Natasha is going to be one of the panelists that we're going to use to be talking like this and answering your questions and giving you some tools that you can go home with and you can use in those moments when you don't have anybody to call to ask any questions. You can use them and you can start your journey or continue your journey of healing. So I was just saying how meaningful it is to be able to have those tools to do the work. How meaningful that is. My daughter Shayla, she's doing her podcast, and I listened to the last episode, and she was talking about her journey through managing anxiety in her body. And she was saying, and when that happens, I realized I was in the emotional brain, and I laughed and I thought, she got it. She got it.
Yes.
So she understands what happens when she's in the emotional brain, what she's feeling, and how to get herself back.
Exactly.
So that she can be in our frontal lobe, where she can think and she can make decisions and she can reason. And she's 16. I wanted to teach them those things early so that they have tools to use to navigate life.
That's right. That's so important. You know, learn how to self-regulate. I mean, who knows these words? Self-regulate. What does that mean? How do I know that I'm not breathing properly? How do I know, you know, how to, when you're in the emotional brain, like what Shayla said, you know, how to sit with that and to know that my feelings are going to come, but they're only going to stay a little while and then they're going to go. Sitting comfortable with your feelings. We don't know these things. We try and escape, and we're used to escaping, as I said. We're
used to. We're used to, and we avoid. We feel like if I'm sad or angry, then those are bad feelings, and I need to avoid them. And they're not bad feelings. They're just feelings. Feelings are not good or bad. They're teachers. They're telling you something.
That's it.
And so to be able to understand what it's telling you and to be able to get yourself back to a place of peace and calm is, if there's no other tool, just that one will change you and your family.
That's right. Yeah, most definitely. And again, biblical. Because anger is a real emotion.
It is.
You can be angry, but Jesus just says, sin not.
Sin not. Yeah.
Sin not.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So,
but sometimes people believe that means, well, I mustn't be angry, but we are going to be, because things are going to make us upset or annoyed or frustrated. That's not the issue. The issue is, how do I get myself back?
Yeah. So, you know, DIY, you know, doing it yourself, healing yourself, you know, obviously we have the word of God, you know, it is just beautiful, you know, and it will make you flourish and all of these things. This is not what we're saying. We're just some practical tools that you can use as well. You know, even with the children, like you said, teaching the children about these emotions, you know, I was able to say to my daughter that your emotions, they come and they go, you know, don't allow these emotions don't need to have the mastery of your life. The more you accept one, the more puffed up it will want to be. Just things like this, you know. So again, all of it is coming back down to having that understanding of who God is, of who Christ is in you. And once you know, this is why it's such a beauty. It's such a beauty when you are a Christian and doing these things, because these are our principles anyway. Principles. It's just that we rarely sit down together and learn the tools. Talk and let's get vulnerable. Let's really get to the bottom of this issue. Let's get to the core of it. You know, we don't do that. We go to church every Sabbath. We go to church every Sabbath, and everyone's happy Sabbath, and we've all got our best clothes on, and you're thinking, my week was awful. You know, I've got something really awful going on, and you think, who can I talk to?
Is there space to talk about that?
Is there space to talk about that? Not really, you know. No.
And for those listening, they might go to church and another day, and you might you know, be wondering the same thing. Do I have room here to talk about this thing that is hurting me? And the overall theme of what we want people know is Jesus heals. He does heal. But he also wants us to be wise and he's the same way he'll send you to the doctor if you have persistent headache. He'll send you to a therapist, a counselor, to get support so that you can it's not the headache, but it's persistent sadness. It's the trauma that we know that people who experience childhood trauma are twice more likely to have depression and anxiety. And so is your consistent low moods connected to some trauma that you experience in childhood. And it doesn't go away with age. Because we grow chronologically, it doesn't mean that goes away, because it's recorded in the brain and the nervous system, and we're carrying it in our bodies and we can't escape it.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's why it's important. So if you're going to do it yourself with some the right appropriate tools.
Oh, that's all.
To do it with. Come get some tools to do. So our conference in Swansea, April 8 and 9, we are teaching tools. We have men and mental health. We have anxiety and depression for teens, because parents, we need to learn to understand how to regulate with our young people, how to teach them emotional language, and how to help them navigate the madness of this world. And if we don't have tools, then we can't teach them tools.
That's it.
And then we're sending them out in the world and they're struggling, you know. So bring your children. We have men and mental health, Natasha, because sometimes women come to these events and they go home, the men are not attending, and it's very difficult to integrate your healing language in a system and a family system that isn't changing, hasn't changed. So we want to meet the needs of the family this time. So bring your family along. Email Joanna at woundsdoscars.com if you want a special family rate. If you want to bring your husband or your wife, come along. We have limited spaces, so don't take too long to make the decision to come and get some support. Anything, I want to say something after this, but anything last that you want to say, Natasha?
No, I think you've said it all there, you know. And in regards to the family, please bring the family. Family, it really will be a blessing, you know. It really will be. I look forward to seeing you.
Yes, I do too. I mean, I previously it's mostly women that we do these events for, but I see, I mean, because I'm living, like, as you know, my husband, we're walking through grief at the moment, and I see the impact of having to manage everybody. And if everybody didn't know a little bit about themselves and about how they respond when things are happening and trauma, then I couldn't manage it on my own. With this, doesn't matter the skills that I have. Everybody needed to know how to regulate for themselves. And sometimes we regulate together as a family, and you can sit around and cry together, and you know that it's a safe space for you to do that in. And we're not trying to ignore it and say, well, you shouldn't feel like that. We have the tools to be able to work with it. And we want to give you tools to go home with so that you can help your children in your relationships affect change in your home, in your church, in your community. That's the whole idea. Thank you, Natasha. You'll see Natasha again as we talk some more about I Have God, I Don't Need a Therapist, that life-changing book that's going to change many people's lives. And so you'll see her again. Come to the conference. You'll be able to speak to her face-to-face, one-to-one. Natasha works in addiction. She has amazing tools that she uses with people and effect change. So come and let us heal together. Thank you, Natasha. And thank you for joining me in this episode of Stories That Shape Us. I hope you'll join me on the next story.